Welcome back. Changes could be coming to a toy store near you. Two lawmakers in California have introduced a bill that would eliminate boys and girls sections at large department stores. The lawmakers say it's part of an effort to make department stores more inclusive and gender neutral. Well, joining us now to discuss is political activist and patriotic artist Scott LoBaido. Scott, good to see you here. This sort of follows a long list of items that have been canceled in recent days. I'm thinking of cartoon characters, Pepe Le Pew, Speedy Gonzales. They were criticized in a recent New York Times op-ed. Dr. Seuss's estate, they just had several books taken out of publication. Your thoughts on the direction this movement is headed?
Look, I've been warning people for 30 years when this political correct movement first popped up its ugly head back in the 90s, and here we are. So I'm not as upset as most people are because I saw this coming. What happened here? I'll tell you what happened. The oversensitivity. Children, okay, look, I understand you want to teach different courses like the psychology of the neglected coffee table, fine. But give these kids a class that they use their hands. They get dirty, they get cuts, wood shop, mechanics. Give them something. When I was a kid, I fell off my big wheel. I cracked my head open. I learned this way in the future. I know how to deal with that stuff. I won't be so sensitive. It's not all of them. I know I have a lot of fans in the young bracket, believe it or not, but the majority, and this turned into a bunch of oversensitive, insanity. But we're at the peak right now where I believe that it's going to turn around and bite them in the butt. And the Dr. Seuss issue is exactly that point, because Dr. Seuss, as we all know, was a big liberal. So it's going back to bite them right where it belongs.
I know. I mean, hey, I remember when I grew up, we would play outside and we were disconnected from any sort of online internet, constant social media. It was great. I feel bad for the kids who have to deal with that growing up and the pressures they face from social media. But what's interesting, Scott, too, is we're seeing this effort out in California, potentially more liberal states, liberal cities as well. Do you think this is going to spread across the nation, or will it stop?
No, it's going to stop. Look at the majority. Again, I happen to be a conservative artist, but as an artist, my mind works. I'm actually very liberal. I'm fine with the gay community, and the majority of Americans that are called racist, bigots, homophobes are not that. They're absolutely not that. They're just people that want to live their life. They don't care who sleeps with who or what you wear. They really don't. But when you try to change their livelihood and their children's livelihood, whether it's having a big, hairy, burly man in a skirt go into a little girl's bathroom, and that's okay, that never really took off. I mean, they keep trying it. Same thing with this. I'm sorry, folks. Gender, this gender neutral thing, triple binary, fine. We don't care. But do not change the majority. It's man and woman that make and create people. That's how it works. You can't take this away from children. Let them. It's the whole thing. You can't look. Same thing. What's going on here with Cuomo? Okay. Look, with this whole. The Me Too movement went way over the top, and that slowed down, as we know, because it was ridiculous. People were coming out of the woodwork 30 years later. Oh, he looked at me the wrong way because I was walking down the street in a bikini and high heels. I'm a dude. You're walking down the street in a bikini and high heels. I'm sorry, but I'm looking. So the Cuomo, some of these allegations are over the top. But the good thing is he's the guy that accused so many people between Kavanaugh and Trump, pointing the finger that he was out of control with women, and this is coming to bite him in the butt, and I'm enjoying that. And let me say one more thing about Cuomo.
All right.
Remember, all the king's horses and all the king's men are not putting him back together again. He's done.
Well, there are calls from Democrats even for his resignation, so we will see, as you say. Scott LoBaido joining us live on the program. Always colorful entertainment. Thanks, Scott. So a lot of people were wondering and watching downtown Minneapolis yesterday as protesters gathered. This was when jury selection was supposed to begin in the trial of Derek Chauvin. Of course, he's the officer connected to the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. That was delayed. Jury selection continues today. Tell me about the latest and what you expect the response to be from the public when it comes to this process in the trial of George Floyd.
Well, what I expect from the public is decency in their behavior. Keep their emotions low. That's probably not what we're going to get from Black Lives Matter and Antifa and other cop haters. However, the jury process is the most important. Look, I've sat at table with prosecutors in the prosecution of homicide trials, a lot of them. So I have a little bit of knowledge about how these things work. The jury selection is the most important for both sides, more so for the defense. The defense just has to find one person, 1 out of 12, that will find an acquittal and stay on it, not get pressured into going along with the other 11. The state, on the other hand, has to go 12 for 12, and it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a very high standard. So the jury, the process now, it's called voir dire. It's a French term. They're being interviewed, the jurors, for potential jurors to sit on this trial. And what they want to do, like I said, is find somebody who's going to allow these officers to be confronted with an impartial jury. They're entitled to that. They're entitled to a presumption of innocence. I want to remind people of that. Nothing has been entered in terms of evidence. If anybody thinks that all they need is a snippet from a tape to convict these officers, they will be wrong.
There's also been a call to look at the charges again, the question of whether he should be charged with third-degree murder, as opposed to what he's currently being charged with. Again, this is Derek Chauvin, the officer involved with the death of George Floyd. What do you think about that call to change the charge, and how do you think that could impact the outcome of the trial?
Yeah, they might try to throw something in at the end to get a lesser charge, a lesser standard. That's usually the strategy that's employed. But look, from the beginning, I said on this program, as well as others, that this case was overcharged. Keith Ellison, the state attorney general, inserted himself into this and started playing to the angry mob in terms of certain charges. He should not have done that. This is a hot mess right now for the prosecution. Like I said, the defense does not have to put a case on here. Okay, they just sit back and watch. They get to cross-examine the evidence. They get to cross-examine witnesses that the state puts up. They don't have to do anything because of the presumption of innocence. So what will be important here is, how much evidence there is, what kind of evidence there is, and who's more convincing. But the jury's got to block all that stuff out and just rule on the evidence in terms of coming up with determination at the end.
All right. That is Sheriff David Clarke joining us with his insight and analysis. We appreciate it. Thanks so much.
All right, back to our developing story now. Congressman Jim Jordan moments ago sending a letter to House Democrats warning about the dangers of cancel culture.
Our national correspondent Logan Raddick brought us those breaking details just moments ago, and Congressman Jim Jordan joins us now live on the program. Congressman, thanks so much for taking the time. If you don't mind, just give our viewers an update as to what you're really asking in this letter here.
Well, look, I think cancel culture in the big sense is the biggest threat to freedom we face. I mean, do you have a functioning First Amendment when only one side's allowed to talk? Do you have free speech when just the left defines what can be said? So this is dangerous, the things we're seeing with this cancel culture. And then to add to it, we had 2 members of Congress specifically try to cancel Newsmax and a couple other television networks just a few weeks ago. So we said in our letter today, let's not be doing this. This is a chilling, the chilling effect that it has when members of Congress try to cancel news organizations. And we specifically asked to make sure those 3 news organizations stay part of the network coverage that we get here on Capitol Hill. And add Newsmax, because right now we only get One American News and Fox, and we said make sure Newsmax is part of that package too. That would go a long way in showing that you guys actually care about the First Amendment and stopping this phenomena that has been called cancel culture.
Congressman, if I can put you on the spot just for a second, and you mentioned Fox News and OAN being an option there, but not Newsmax. You're pushing for Newsmax. Can I ask you why? Why Newsmax?
Well, because, I mean, look, you've got all the left-wing networks as part of the package that House members can get and staff can see here in our offices. And you have 2 of the 3 conservative networks. Why not the 3rd? Why not Newsmax, a great news organization that you're all a part of? You guys do great work. Why not have that a part of it as well and show that you are committed? Democrats are committed. They run that network. They're in charge of Capitol here. Show that you're committed to actually the First Amendment and stopping the cancel culture attacks that we're seeing almost now on a daily basis.
Well, we appreciate you advocating for us at Capitol Hill because we do think it's important to get these news stories out to the public. Tell me about what the response has been like in your calls to get these publications available to those who might not normally see this sort of news coverage.
Well, remember, Emma, the House Judiciary Committee is supposed to be the committee most focused on protecting the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and your fundamental liberties. We have yet to have a full committee hearing. So the full Judiciary Committee, Congress has been in session now for over 2 months. We have yet to have a full Judiciary Committee hearing. We asked Chairman Adler to have that first hearing and to focus on the cancel culture issue. We're still awaiting a response. So then today, Mr. Davis and I, the ranking member on the House Administration Committee, we sent the letter to Chairwoman Lofgren, who chairs the House Administration Committee, and we asked her to make sure that they're not going to cancel these networks here on the House network and to add Newsmax. So we'll see what kind of response we get from Chairwoman Lofgren, but my guess is it'll be the same response we are getting from Chairman Adler.
Yeah, absolutely. Congressman, I got to ask you about the FCC and exactly what role the FCC plays a part in this. Is this a completely separate matter in your efforts with the letter that you sent? Does the FCC have any say?
Well, the FCC as the broader jurisdiction. What our letter is focusing on is Capitol Hill.
Got it.
We get so many stations, so many networks on our system here. We're asking, make sure you keep the conservative networks on the system and add yours. So the FEC is not really involved in what's happening here on Capitol Hill per se, but certainly in the broader sense. And the letter that Congresswoman Eshoo and Congressman McNerney sent to 9 different businesses and networks talking about getting rid of these key networks, the FEC would be involved in that. And let's hope they come down on the side of the First Amendment.
Absolutely, because they have, case in point, they have tried. You've seen networks like CNN and others to actually try to pull networks like ours off the air. FCC pushed back very quickly. So you've sent this letter out. How much support do you have behind it?
Oh, my guess is, Shaun, that all the Republicans would support this. We'll just see what the Democrats say. But I would love to see Newsmax added to the system here. I mean, just makes good common sense to me. You got all the other major networks who cover politics on a daily basis. Why not add Newsmax to the mix as well? But we'll have to see. I've said many times before that the cancel culture won't just stop with Republicans and conservatives. I said this on the House floor, in fact, during the impeachment debate. I said the appetite of the cancel culture is never satisfied. It will come for Democrats at some point, too. And it took all of 13 days for that statement to be proven true when the San Francisco School Board renamed the Dianne Feinstein Elementary School and said that school would no longer be named after liberal senator from California, Dianne Feinstein. They changed the name of the school because of something she said 37 years ago. So this is how wrong this stuff is. This is how dangerous this cancel culture mindset is. And we could send a message as the Congress that's supposed to be protecting Americans' First Amendment liberties. It'd be a nice message to send if we would add Newsmax to the mix of channels and stations that we get, and make sure we protect Fox and One America News as well.
Well, I think a lot of reporters, regardless of what news organization they're with, have plenty of questions for the current commander-in-chief. President Biden has yet to host a press briefing with members of the press taking unscripted questions. Is that something you would like to see happen? Again, President Biden just addressing members of the media.
Sure, I think the American people, have a right to hear from the individual who's the leader of our great country, and contrast the President Biden with President Trump. I mean, I remember time and time again when President Trump would walk out to get on Marine One, and he'd just have a press conference, just walk out and just start. Sometimes it would go on for a long time. So what a contrast between President Trump, I think the most transparent president we have ever had, versus what we are getting from President Biden. And then when you couple the 48 days I think he's been in office, the fact that he hasn't talked to the American people, hasn't done a press conference, you couple that with the policies, the things that are happening. I mean, schools closed, the border open, gas prices going up. I mean, all kinds of bad policies that we're seeing play out here in the first six and a half weeks of this administration.
Well, look, we love to hear about the letter that you're sending there, specifically on behalf of Newsmax. All of your colleagues are on the network all the time, day and night, so it'd be great. And also really just the overall fight that you're having against cancel culture. I think anyone loves to see that, to push back on cancel culture, especially in days like this. Congressman Jim Jordan joining us live. Congressman, thank you for your time, sir.
President Biden's 2 German Shepherds, they've been moved to the family home in Delaware after one of the canines showed ongoing aggressive behavior to White House staff.
Champ and Major had been moved after Major, the president's rescue dog, had what one person described as a, quote, biting incident with a member of the White House's security staff.
No other specifics have been released, but it is typical for the dogs to stay at the family home in Delaware when First Lady Jill Biden is traveling.
Former President Trump arrived in New York City Monday night for the first time since leaving the White House and was met with a mix of supporters and protesters. Correspondent Mike Carter went to Trump Tower. He filed this report.
Well, former President Trump returned to New York over the weekend, and though he may no longer be in office, that didn't stop both his fans and detractors from converging on Trump Tower on Monday and making their voices known.
No one is above the law. No one is above the law.
In his first return home to New York since leaving the White House, Donald Trump's presence in the Big Apple proving as impactful as ever.
I'm so happy he's back. Yeah, we miss him and we need him. We love him.
Trump's return to New York coming just days after hundreds of supporters unveiled this Trump 2024 flag on Fifth Avenue, pleading for the 45th president to run again in 3 years.
He will be back in 2024. I can promise you that.
Tax evasion. Guilty, guilty, guilty.
And while some are happy with Trump's return to New York, his critics sure to make their views known.
He is a seditious man. He is a racist man. He is a misogynist man.
Can I ask you, what is Donald Trump guilty of? What is he guilty of? What is he guilty of?
Is guilty.
What is Trump guilty of?
Guilty.
Guilty of what?
I've traveled around the country for the last 4 years, and I would say that New York is probably the safest city to make your voices heard.
But while many Trump supporters in New York may share that sentiment, some still feel the need to hide their support in fear of retribution. Do you feel attacked here in New York City being a Trump supporter?
Yes, that's why I have to hide my hat under my hood. You are not allowed to express your thoughts. You cannot say, okay, I support Donald Trump. The man is out of office. They got what they wanted, so I don't really know why they are still wrapped up in Donald Trump.
For Newsmax, Mike Carter, New York City.
All right, for more reaction, we want to bring in David Horowitz, author of Dark Agenda, The War to Destroy Christian America. And our panelists, Bobby Epperly and Ted Harvey, are also standing by. David, we'll start this off. Are you surprised to see Trump supporters in New York City, even if that meant that one had to hide her identity?
No, why would I be surprised? It got 75 million votes. That's more than any president before him in history. Trump has been much maligned. We're living in very embarrassing times for Americans. Here we have, they're burning books, and the books are these incredibly popular Dr. Seuss books. How shameful is that? That whatever it is now, 70, 80 years after the Nazis burned books in Berlin, we're doing it here, although it's more figuratively, taking classics off the shelves. You know, these people that can't even, you know, you asked, or your reporter asked, what's Trump guilty of? They have no idea. They just hate him, period. It's pure. The Democrat Party is a party of hate. It's been spewing hate for 4 or 5 years now. Completely unanchored. You know, the leader of the hate team is Nancy Pelosi, called all Republicans enemies of the state. Can you imagine? I mean, not even McCarthy, you know, called the whole political party enemies of the state.
Yeah, clearly highly political times. I mean, we're seeing in New York City clashes between two different groups of supporters there, those who support the president and those who do not. Bobby, interesting to note, too, that those supporters, they're already calling on Donald Trump, who's up at the top of Trump Towers, to run in 2024 to save America. At least that's what their sign said. Do you think that's sending a message? Do you think that might encourage him to get back on the campaign trail in 2024?
Oh my gosh, these next couple of years are going to be so interesting and so fascinating. I think, you know, what he was hinting at CPAC, you know, just a couple of weeks ago, was he's going to be out there, he's going to have an integral role in 2022. But he almost, you know, was just right there at the tip of his tongue that he was going to run again. I think if the support is there, if people keep pushing him, that rather than play kingmaker, I think that's what he'll do. I mean, that's just my opinion right now. But the support is definitely there. We saw it at CPAC. We saw it in, you know, the support in New York. But, it's interesting times. And when we see Roy Blunt and others retiring, we see the influence that President Trump exerts right there, because the candidates that are going to run are going to be pro-Trump candidates, pushing a conservative agenda, but also sticking up for our rights and fighting back against the media and the cancel culture.
Yeah, Ted Harvey, are we going to see the presence of Donald Trump before 2024, maybe behind the scenes?
You bet. I think that the president's going to be doing everything he possibly can to make sure that the Republicans win 6 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives and rip the gavel out of Nancy Pelosi's hands. I think that all we have to do is win 1 seat in the Senate, and I think it's pretty much a given that we're going to do that. And if we were able to do that, and President Trump is a huge player in that, and I think we're going to have some pretty significant primaries in the Republican Party as well, and if we put forward some solid pro-America agenda first Republicans in there, I think that will set the table for the president to make the decision to get back in. And if he wants to, he will. There's nobody in the Republican Party that can run a primary against him. And certainly there's nobody in the Democrat Party that can defeat him. Joe Biden, I'm not sure he can make it for another 4 years, much less run again when he's, what would he be, 82 years old then? And Kamala Harris, nobody liked her when she ran in the Democrat primary. She couldn't even get 1 vote in 1 state. And so the Democrat bench is pretty weak. So looking forward, I think if Donald Trump wants to run, he certainly has all of the wind behind his back.
God save the world. God save the child, humble the strong, strengthen the mild.
That is country music standout Jeff Carson taking us back to the early 2000s with the re-release of his 2003 hit, God Save the World. Couldn't be more relevant in today's time.
Jeff Carson joins us live now on National Report here. There he is. Jeff, good to see you.
Good to see y'all. Thank you.
Hey, man. Thanks so much for coming on. Tell the viewers why you decided to go back now today, or in this time, in this era, if you will, and re-release this specific single.
Well, music has always been my first and foremost love. Early 2000s, I had to get out of it because I just couldn't make a living at it anymore. And the only other thing I wanted to do all my life was to be a police officer. So living with that for the last 13 years, I'm so proud to be a police officer. I still have music vision in the back of my mind. And I thought, this song is so poignant now and relates to everything that's going on that we decided to go in and recut it, re-release it.
Well, like we said, it's the time for it, and we thank you for your service, serving as a police officer. Maybe if you don't mind, just sort of tell us what you've noticed over the past few years when it comes to treatment that police officers have received from members of the community.
You know what? I am so blessed. I've been with this department, like I said, for 13 years. It's a smaller department, I think a couple hundred sworn officers, and we're just south of Nashville. And when all these struggles were going on in the larger cities, I could count 5-6 times a day if I was in a parking lot sitting in my patrol car that people would make a point to drive up and say, hey, we appreciate what you're doing. Thank you for what you're doing. And we all love that.
Yeah, to be an officer, obviously you have to be a person of authority as well, but to be an entertainer, you have to be an artist as well. I imagine that gives you, a different way of interacting with people in your community.
It does. I've always treated people like I want to be treated myself, whether I was an artist on top of the charts or a police officer. I just treat people how I want to be treated. Yeah. And that carries over well with what I do now.
Well, let me ask you about this treatment of royalty, if you will. Bombshell allegations flooded headlines yesterday after the release of a CBS interview with Prince Harry, Meghan Markle. 1, did you watch it? 2, have you heard any reaction from the entertainment industry on it, and maybe your reaction to it?
1, I did not watch it live. I have seen it. I don't get into politics much, but I tell you what, I think he's not complaining about being rich or not rich. I think that Harry just put on his dad hat and took matters in his own hands. And, God bless him for doing it. He's taking care of his family.
Yeah, looking out for his family and their safety and protection and what they feel is
Absolutely.
best for their family. Critics are quick to point out that you've got millionaires who are on television airing all their grievances and struggles with their in-laws and complaining about what they've experienced. At the same time, you've got people, Americans who are really struggling out there who've been unemployed because of the pandemic. They're trying to figure out where they're going to get their next meal. Is there something within the entertainment industry that just lacks a sense of touch with regular Americans out there and the struggles that they might face?
On the entertainment industry as a whole, yeah, there could be all kinds of, but in the country music field, the people I know and deal with, other artists, not that I've really kept in close contact for all these years, but the ones I still meet with and talk with, everyone's pro-police, just people in general. I feel so bad for the ones that have lost their job during this pandemic. I was blessed enough to be one that didn't, but my heart goes out to everyone who's lost their job because of this.
I've got to ask you about this, this whole defund the police movement, because I want to speak to the police officer in you. House Democrats have backed the bill. Essentially, they're wanting to ban chokeholds and qualified immunity for law enforcement, which you guys basically could be sued. It would also create national standards for policing and a bid to bolster accountability. President Biden has backed this bill. I'm just curious on what you think about this and this attack on police officers, this call to defund the police that you and your brothers and your sisters have seen over the past year.
Well, first of all, I'm not a spokesperson for my department, but I am a law enforcement officer. I'm here to protect and serve. I don't see politics when I'm in uniform. I see right and wrong, no matter who voted for who, and that doesn't prevent me from doing my job. Beyond that, I'm just thankful to be a police officer with a steady income and loving what I do and playing music. That's just a cherry on top.
All right. That is Jeff Carson taking the time and joining us this morning. Jeff, thanks so much. He's got his new re-release of the 2003 hit song, God Save the World. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Nice guy.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, where real news for real people.